The 5 impossible buildings of the Bible: mythology, archaeology, and unsolved mysteries. Do you really understand the land beneath our feet? Or, to put it more accurately, did you know that some of the most mind-boggling engineering miracles in human history haven't been lost, but are actually recorded in an ancient book, the Bible? Some of these structures were built with wealth that could buy an entire modern nation. Some featured designs that defied the physics of their time, and others met their end in ways that still send shivers down the spines of scientists today. This isn't just a story about faith. This is a hardcore collision of archaeology, geology, and ancient black technology. In this video, we are going to peel back the layers of history to reveal the 5 greatest biblical structures. This isn't just a list. It is a thread of clues unraveling human origins and destiny. Especially the last one on the list. It not only challenged the authority of the Roman Empire, but completely fundamentally changed humanity's definition of God. Are you ready to rewrite your understanding? Our journey begins with a flood that destroyed the world. First, let's talk about the origin of all mysteries: Noah's Ark. Forget the cute little bathtub you saw in children's picture books. If you carefully study the technical specifications in the book of Genesis, you will find that what Noah built was not a boat, but a floating biospheric fortress. The Bible gives extremely precise dimensions: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Converted to modern units, that is approximately 137 meters long, 23 meters wide, and 14 meters high. To give you a visual concept, this is equivalent to a modern Panamax cargo ship, or to put it another way, its volume was enough to hold over 500 standard railroad freight cars. This isn't just big, it is terrifyingly reasonable. For centuries, naval architects have analyzed the ark's length-to-width ratio, which is 6:1. Do you know what they found? This is exactly the golden ratio recognized in modern shipbuilding engineering. Vessels designed with this ratio, while not fast, possess extreme stability in rough seas and are almost impossible to capsize. This leads to a massive logical loophole. In an era without naval academies or fluid dynamics laboratories, how did an old man named Noah, living inland, essentially pull the optimal hydrodynamic design out of thin air, a design that today requires computers to simulate? The Bible's answer is a divine blueprint.
See how the color changes.
But what about the scientific community? Geologists and archaeologists haven't dismissed this entirely as myth. In the sedimentary layers of the Mesopotamian plain, scientists have indeed found geological evidence of a massive, sudden flood, which coincides perfectly with the records in the Sumerian tablets of the Epic of Gilgamesh. But the most shocking discovery happened in 1959. A Turkish pilot flying over Mount Ararat at an altitude of over 4,000 meters photographed a strange, boat-shaped geological formation. Subsequent expeditions used ground-penetrating radar scans and incredibly found a regular structure resembling a ship's keel underground, as well as petrified wood containing traces of machining. Even more interesting, giant anchor stones, stones typically used in ancient navigation to stabilize ships, were found in the area, thousands of kilometers away from the sea. Is this a coincidence of nature, or the wreckage of a gopher wood giant coated in bitumen? Science is still debating, but one thing is certain. In that ancient era, a catastrophe occurred that required an engineering miracle to survive. If surviving the flood was step 1 for humanity, the next story is about human ambitions swelling out of control. When the waters receded, humanity began to repopulate. If the Ark was about survival, then the Tower of Babel was about becoming God. This was also the first recorded technological revolution in history. Notice the details in Genesis chapter 11. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and bitumen for mortar. This is a critical turning point. Before this, architecture relied on stone, limited by geography. But baking bricks and using bitumen, an ancient high-strength adhesive and waterproofing agent, meant that humans had mastered the technology of mass-produced prefabrication. This leap in technology gave them a crazy idea: to build a tower that reached the heavens. This wasn't just a tower. It was a symbol of the unified will of all humanity, the first attempt to establish a world government. Their slogan was, "Let us make a name for ourselves." Why was God afraid of this tower? Or rather, what was he preventing? God didn't send down lightning to destroy the tower. He did something far more devastating. He cut the flow of information. Instantly, language was confused. This is actually a profound sociological metaphor. No matter how advanced technology is, if communication breaks down, any great civilization will instantly collapse. Did this really exist? Archaeology gives us startling clues. In ancient Babylon, modern-day Iraq, archaeologists discovered the ruins of Etemenanki, a massive stepped pyramid, ziggurat, dedicated to the god Marduk. The Babylonian inscriptions clearly read, Etemenanki, house of the foundation of heaven and earth. The historian Herodotus once described the magnificence of this tower. It was 90 meters high, an unimaginable height at the time. Moreover, archaeology reveals that this tower was destroyed and rebuilt multiple times until it was finally abandoned. Many scholars firmly believe this is the prototype of the Tower of Babel. The ruins of Babel warn us to this day. When humanity tries to challenge the divine order with technology but ignores internal humility, confusion, Babel, is the inevitable ending. And the next building shows us what happens when that divine order is used for war. This was the most absurd battle in military history. No siege towers, no catapults, no ladders. The attacking side's only weapons were trumpets and walking. This is the story of the Walls of Jericho. Jericho, one of the oldest cities in the world, sits below sea level and is a natural fortress. Archaeologists have found that Jericho possessed a rare double wall system. The outer wall was a massive stone revetment with a brick wall on top. The inner wall was even taller and thicker. For the Israelites, who had just finished 40 years of wandering and were poorly equipped, this was simply an impossible mission. But God's strategy was completely illogical. March around the city for 6 days in absolute silence. On the 7th day, march 7 times, blow the horns, and shout. Can sound really shatter stone? Or was there another force? If you ask a physicist, they might tell you about the principle of resonance, but human voices are obviously not enough to collapse walls several meters thick. However, when the famous British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon excavated Jericho in the 1950s, she discovered spine-chilling details. She found a thick layer of ash and collapsed red bricks. The key lies in the direction the walls fell. All the bricks fell outwards. Stop and think about what this means. In ancient siege warfare, if battering rams were used, walls fell inward. If tunnels were dug, walls sank downward. Only the walls of Jericho fell outwards, forming a natural ramp that allowed the invaders to go straight in, exactly as recorded in the book of Joshua. Science attempts to explain this. Jericho sits on the fault line of the Jordan Rift Valley, a high-risk earthquake zone. Some scholars believe a precisely timed earthquake caused soil liquefaction, collapsing the walls. But this only deepens the mystery. If it was just an earthquake, why did it happen exactly at the second the trumpets blew? How did Joshua predict the exact time of this earthquake 7 days in advance? This is a miracle that probability cannot explain. The ruins of Jericho tell us that sometimes the strongest obstacles are not pushed down by force, but shattered by obedient faith. Now, if Jericho represented a victory of war, the next building represents the ultimate glory of peace. Take a deep breath and imagine standing in a palace made of pure gold, cedar from Lebanon, and exquisite marble. There are no nails here, no blemishes, and during its construction, not even the sound of a hammer was heard. This is Solomon's temple. This is not just architecture. This is the pinnacle of theology and aesthetics. King Solomon, the king of wisdom, mobilized the top resources of the time. He collaborated with King Hiram of Tyre in Phoenicia, utilizing the most advanced navigation and logging technologies available. But the most shocking part was the order for silent construction. The Bible records that all stones were cut and polished at the quarry, so when they were brought to the site, they only needed assembly, so that neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron was heard in the house while it was being built. This was 3,000 years ago. This is the earliest prefabricated modular construction technology. Such a requirement for precision was unimaginable at the time. It implies extremely complex project management capabilities and zero-error measurement technology. Look at its wealth. It is estimated that the gold used for the interior decoration of the temple alone would be worth billions of dollars today. The walls were carved with cherubim and palm trees, all overlaid with gold. In the deepest part of this building, the Holy of Holies, sat the Ark of the Covenant. This wasn't just a box. It was the interface between God and humanity. When the temple was completed, something supernatural happened. The cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not even stand to minister. This was not a weather phenomenon. This was the Shekinah, the physical manifestation of God's glory. However, archaeologists face a huge challenge on this issue. Because the Temple Mount is now an extremely sensitive political and religious area, large-scale excavation is impossible. But, in the underground tunnels of Jerusalem, we have found massive stone foundations from that period. Their cutting craftsmanship is so exquisite that it still leaves modern stonemasons in awe. Furthermore, the discovery of Solomon's jar handles and related seals indirectly confirms the massive administrative and trade network of that era. The splendor of Solomon's temple seems to imply, when humans offer their best to God, God responds with glory. But history is cruel. Even the greatest stone building, if it loses its internal loyalty, will eventually turn to rubble. This brings us to the last and the most heartbreaking yet hopeful building. If you thought Solomon's temple was the ultimate, you need to understand the story of the Second Temple. This isn't just a reconstruction. It is an epic of identity, destruction, and rebirth. In 586 BC, the first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians. 70 years later, returning exiles rebuilt on the ruins. At first, it was modest. The old men who had seen the previous temple even wept aloud because of the comparison. But that wasn't the end. Centuries later, a tyrant and architectural genius named Herod the Great entered the scene. To curry favor with the Jews, he launched one of the largest expansion projects of the ancient world. He doubled the size of the Temple Mount, using massive stones weighing hundreds of tons. some of which can still be seen in the Western Wall tunnels today, where the joints are so tight you cannot even insert a piece of paper. The renovated Second Temple shone dazzlingly white and gold under the sun. Rabbis of the time said, "He who has not seen the beauty of Herod's temple has never seen beauty in his life." But there was a fatal absence here. The Holy of Holies was empty. The Ark of the Covenant was missing. It was like an omen. The exterior was incredibly magnificent, but the core was missing. It was in this magnificent building that Jesus said something that shocked everyone at the time. "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." People mocked him because the temple took 46 years to build. But they didn't understand. Jesus wasn't talking about stones, he was talking about his body. History verified the cruelty of the prophecy. In 70 AD, the Roman general Titus besieged Jerusalem. After brutal street fighting, the temple was set on fire. It is said that because the vast amounts of gold melted and flowed into the cracks of the stones, Roman soldiers literally took the temple apart, not leaving one stone upon another to extract the gold, completely fulfilling Jesus' prophecy. Is this a tragic ending? No, this is actually a beginning. Today, if you go to Jerusalem, you will see the famous Wailing Wall. That is just a small remnant of the outer retaining wall of the Second Temple. For thousands of years, people have wept and prayed against these stones, inserting slips of paper. But this is the deepest secret of this fifth great building. With the destruction of the Second Temple, God no longer dwells in temples made by human hands. The torn curtain symbolized that the divine dwelling place had shifted. Now, the greatest building is no longer the wooden boat on Mount Ararat, not the brick Tower of Babylon, nor the golden palace of Jerusalem. The Bible gives the final answer. It is you. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit? This plot twist is enough to leave you speechless. All the magnificent buildings in history eventually collapsed, decayed, or vanished. But that invisible, yet eternal temple is being built in the heart of every believer. From the salvation of the ark to the arrogance of Babel. From the faith of Jericho to the glory and transformation of the temple. These 5 buildings outline the long and complex history of the relationship between humanity and God. Now, I want to ask you a question that might be more important than any archaeological dig. If your life is a temple, is it currently in ruins, or is it being rebuilt? Those external glories will eventually pass away. Only the internal construction can last forever. If you also want to rebuild inner order and faith in this restless world, please leave the word "rebuild" in the comments. But this is just one small piece of the biblical archaeology puzzle. If you are interested in the daily life of that era, what did they eat? What did they wear? What was a wedding like in the time of Jesus? You absolutely cannot miss the video we are recommending next. Click the content on the screen, and let's travel back to that era filled with dust and glory to see how the people who changed history actually lived.